Welcome to the Winden Caves. My name's Bubba, and joining me again this week is...
Tiny!
Tiny, we have done it. We have reached the deepest section of the cave. We have reached the iron door, and we are able to review the entire Season 1 of Netflix's Dark. We're going to specifically be hitting on the final two episodes, Episode 9, Everything Is Now, and Episode 10, Alpha and Omega. Tiny, you've made it to the end in one piece, so I think. How you doing?
I'm doing great, feeling great.
Looking a bit like Helge, though, after those final two episodes, and I mean 2019 Helge.
I'm pretty sure since our last episode here, maybe we've been mispronouncing Helge. I realize we've been going back and forth,
On
but
Helge?
Yeah, I think maybe it's actually Helge, and we are Americanizing his name to Helge.
Well, you know why I always do that? It's because Helge was like a witch's name, a female witch's name, and so it's hard for me to get my head around Helge. It kind of like Helge's head had a hard time getting around that rock that Ulrich crushed.
Yeah, Helge doesn't have enough problems. Bubba's got to make fun of him regarding his name.
No, we love you, Helge. Helge, however you want it to be, you're good with us. R.I.P. Episode 10, Helge. All right, so before we break down these two episodes, the series as a whole, and our guesses towards Season 2 of Dark, let's get to our feedback.
Peter, on Twitter at Bagga, B-A-G-G-A 2007, says, I really had forgotten just how confusing Dark got until the rewatch and you and Tiny's podcast. And I was just about to watch Peggy Sue Got Married, and Tiny gave the ending away.
Oh, Tiny, how good you?
Don't worry. LOL, he was joking.
Oh, good. Peter down in Australia, we love you. We have new feedback from a new Double L loyal listener. This is from Shatiara. It's at PDX Shanti on Twitter, or Shoddy on Twitter. They write, this is a perfect description of Dark. It's so good. I need to rewatch it. You do.
Hurry up, PDX Shoddy. Monique is moving. Hashtag the expanse to Wakanda. At Haughty Marauder. I want to slap Hannah so hard. Get in line. Get in line, Haughty Marauder.
Oh, Monique is a double H.
Oh, what's a double H?
A Hannah hater.
Oh, Hannah hater, of course.
Oh, Haughty Marauder is a double H Hannah hater. Okay, Tiny, it is time to jump in to our review of these final two episodes and the series as a whole. About episode 6 or 7, Tiny, you turned to me and you said, does this first season wrap up, or does it have like a lot of cliffhangers and go on? And you said you prefer shows that kind of have a nice wrap up. They can tease maybe a bit the story continuing, but you like a nice clean conclusion. This doesn't seem like it came anywhere close to a nice clean conclusion. How you doing, Tiny?
Well, I'm okay. I love the show, obviously. We've been talking about the show. I am a little frustrated. I kind of got used to that triple symbol intersecting and really feeling like the loop was 3 different 33 years apart spaces in time. So to blast forward 33 years, I'm just wondering what new symbol is going to be.
Right. The triketra is going to have to be a quadriketra or possibly even more. I don't want to say anything. This is totally a guess. But in one of the production stills for Season 2, I have thought to myself, oh my goodness, that could be Winden in 1920. And I'm like, no, don't tell me we're going even further back in time, forward in time, however you want to do it. Tiny, we've already talked about Hannah. This show is packed to the gills with characters. Some characters kind of have 3 versions of them because we're following them in 3 different periods of their life, 3 different times of their life. So this is a tough question, but I want you to tell our listeners who of all these characters is your favorite character, and if they appear in more than one time, when is your favorite time for them?
Well, I guess kind of what's happening is the most boring family we talked about on our first episode. I think Charlotte is becoming the hero of the series. She's clearly the most earnest person in Winden at all. So far, knock on wood. She seems the most, piecing things together and coming into her own, actually, too. So, I'm enjoying. All the other characters seem to have only gotten worse, and Charlotte has gotten a little bit better. I also love the, getting back to the same family, the humor of Elizabeth. her red lipstick. She's got attitude. I appreciate her also.
I am going to upset one of our listeners when I was really thinking about this, because I think when all is said and done, I'm going to call them my favorite character, but it's only because they intrigue me the most, and that's Hannah. Hannah,
man.
Listen to me.
Haughty Marauder. What are your thoughts here? Tweet Bubba at Double P Podcast.
At Double PHQ on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook.com/Double PHQ. Haughty Marauder and everybody else. Hannah is fascinating. The depths that she goes to. When Katharina comes to her house and she pretends that she broke it off with Ulrich, that he kind of kept saying he loved Hannah and he wanted to divorce his wife and marry her, she keeps reaching new depths of hate. She's taken a wild swing from being obsessed with Ulrich and needing his love so much, and now she's flipped the other side. She's blackmailing people to destroy him.
Well, she's not a quitter. I mean, she sticks with something, kind of like a dog on a bone. Hannah is very focused in her love for Ulrich. And honestly, I mean, Bubba, think about who you liked when you were 14. Can you imagine being that passionate about the person today? So much that you would ask a very powerful person to destroy them and almost intentionally let their spouse know that you were having an affair.
Listen to me. Hannah is fascinating. Once again, because she's fascinating, I'm naming her my favorite character, but I am willing to say that I still am Team Jonas. I feel, despite the completely awful thing he did to young Helge, what Ulrich did is, I still like him a lot. I like all the kids. I even like Bartosz, even though I keep saying that I think he's going to turn evil. Of course, we may be pronouncing Bartosz wrong, too.
Yeah, I'm sure we are.
Sometimes they say Bartosz.
I don't know. You look at another show Bubba and I watched together. Maybe we should start a podcast. It's The Bachelor. And you take Ashley I repeatedly on Bachelor in Paradise after, and then it only took until Bachelor Olympics for her to get her guy. So, I mean, there's something to be said sometimes for sticking with your plan.
You've come around to Hannah. That's great. So good. Okay, we've spent these 10 episodes, almost 10 hours of our lives watching this show. There isn't going to be much of a wait because on Friday, June 21st, 2019, Dark Season 2 is going to come out. But I thought we should talk about, are there any shows you think that people who have watched these first 10 episodes and enjoyed it enough to listen to a podcast about it, is there any other show you would recommend to people who enjoy Dark?
Well, I think, obviously Lost comes to mind. We've talked about it before. Our younger listeners may have not seen Lost before. So I think Lost is the perennial time travel show for really our generation is what I'm thinking.
No, I think that's a great call. Some people have referred back to Twin Peaks because it's a small town with mysterious goings-on in it and a lot of interconnecting families and kind of love triangles and that kind of stuff. I am going to stay in Europe, and I'm going to stay on Netflix, and that is, if you like Dark, I'm going to imagine you like twisty plots. You aren't afraid of watching something that has elements of tragedy, and you aren't afraid of watching something that can be complex. Now, there is another German show on Netflix that is called Babylon Berlin. It is so good, but there's a couple things you need to know about it. Does it have twisting plots with big shocking twists, just like Dark? Oh, you bet it does. Does it have a tinge of tragedy haunting the show? Yes. Why? Because Babylon Berlin is set in Germany in the 1920s, after World War I, before World War II. So hanging over all of it, you know that the Nazi party is going to uprise, and of course, Germany's going to fall.
So does it take place in the theoretical killing of baby Hitler, or is that still to come?
Right, that might be in a future season of Babylon Berlin. It is maybe easier to enjoy than Dark because even though it has a lot of tragedy, has a lot of twists and turns and sadness, there are moments of light. There are periods where the characters are allowed to have triumph. Another thing that it makes it slightly different from Dark is there's no sci-fi element. It is based around a police procedural, but it's sprawling in the way it encompasses everything. And finally, they spent a ton of money on this thing. There is, for lack of a better word, a musical section where one of the characters goes to a cabaret in 1920s Berlin, and it is one of the most extravagant things I've ever seen on my screen. If you like these kind of elements, check out Babylon Berlin, another show set in Germany, produced in Germany, that's available on Netflix now. Before we get deeper into our conversation, I thought I should talk about what Dark racked up. The series was nominated for something called the Golden Camera. It's a TV award in Germany. It was nominated for 3 categories: Best Series, Best Actress for Caroline Eichhorn, who plays Charlotte, the cop, Best Actor Oliver Mascucci, who plays Ulrich Nielsen. It didn't win any of those 3, but the actor who plays Jonas, Louis Hofmann, he received a Best Newcomer Acting Award at the Golden Camera of 2018. Also in 2018, it received nominations for Best TV Show in a Brazilian award show called Break Tudo Awards, and Jonas received a nomination in the category of Best International Actor. And finally, in 2018, it was awarded something called the Grammy Prize, I may be mispronouncing that, which is a fiction prize which singled out the following cast and crew members for awards.
You may be mispronouncing that. We're not sure.
Totally.
Ask Helge.
How dare you? The actors who were nominated for this include Angela Winkler, who plays the oldest version of Ines. You have Louis Hofmann again, who plays Jonas, and Oliver Mascucci, who plays Ulrich. Tiny, as we talk about these final 2 episodes, I feel like we ought to focus on 3 characters who I think really play a big part. The first one is Alexander. We met him in the first episode in 2019, but throughout the entire show, it feels like Alexander has kind of played a very minor role up until the very end. It's in episode 9 when we see that in 1986, Alexander arrived in town. He told us that, or we heard him tell Hannah that in episode 1. We see him arriving in town in episode 9. He seems to have been shot. He's carrying a couple of passports, one of whom has the name Boris, and he seemingly just decides, oh yeah, I'll go by Alexander. He befriends young Regina, saves her from being bullied by teenage Ulrich and teenage Katharina. She points him towards her mom, who is once again the newly promoted director of the power plant. And then she ends up hiring Alexander to weld the door shut. And he had to keep it a secret to all those barrels in the caves.
So do you think that's how he got his position? He basically kept the best secret ever for 33 years.
If he wanted to. Now, this woman who gave him his job is going to be his future mother-in-law, and if that wasn't enough, he's going to take her last name.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. We may not like Hannah, but how much foresight do you have to save these documents from when you're 14? Alexander has been, I assume, very successful for a long time. She could have gotten anything from him. She lives in not so nice house, living very meagerly. She's going to spend this on Ulrich. But, I mean, it's just super interesting to me that she must have had so many other opportunities to bring this to his attention and get something from it. Clearly, that's her MO. But she waits until now to disclose that she has this bag.
Right. Then Alexander, realizing he's between a rock and a hard place, he reaches out to a local cop, that cop who has infamous patch on his eye, and tells him, listen, we got to get dirt on Ulrich Nielsen. What could possibly Alexander do? We don't know. We see him in the very last kind of montage of episode 10, where he and his wife Regina are driving and they stop the car and they look and they see a bit of this time wormhole opening over the forest. Tiny, Alexander, are you intrigued by him? And where do you see him and his wife, who's got this terrible diagnosis of breast cancer, going in season 2?
I really feel, and maybe this is reading too much into the situation, but it seems like Alexander and Peter may have a reason to meet up other than time travel and whatever is going underneath the surface related to the plot. It seems like, to me, that's a possible romantic interest for the show.
Ooh, now that is a good guess. I will tell you my first impression is when I saw Alexander arrive in 1986 and he'd been shot, I immediately thought, the first time we see him, he's running in the woods. Obviously, he came out of the cave. He's a time traveler as well. Then when I saw episode 10, and I saw Jonas end up in some future world of 2052 where a lot of people are pointing guns at Jonas, my first thought was, Alexander must have traveled here from 2052, ended up 66 years back at 1986, and I would like to see that. Even though he's not in the show much, he actually seems like a likable character as far as I can tell, and so I can't imagine where his story goes, but in one of the trailers for season 2, we see that his wife, Regina, is bald because she's been going through chemo.
Oh, well, I love that theory. I think I could get behind that theory, and I like that a lot, as to the reason he's shot.
Okay, so that's Alexander. Let's get back to what I call the protagonist, even though everybody plays such an important part. That's Jonas. Let's cover him through episodes 9 and 10. So Jonas has decided not to bring his father Mikkel back in time and erase himself from existence. He's hanging out at home. He's avoiding Martha's phone calls. What happens, of course, the love of his life and his aunt shows up at his house in the rain. She doesn't have an umbrella. This is like something from a romantic movie.
Her lipstick is still perfect.
Good work, Martha. You really came prepared. Martha wants to know what's going on. Did you kiss me the other day just as a thrill? After they're back and forth and Jonas is very dead-faced and dead-voiced, we're just not right for each other. Martha goes in and kisses him. And in my opinion, Tiny, he seemed to kiss back for a little bit.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Then, of course, he says, we've got to call it off. Upset Martha tells her boyfriend Bartosz that she kissed Jonas. Jonas goes to school. Bartosz is laying in wait for him. It's, of course, still raining, as the weatherman only has one forecast for Winden: rain. Now let's take a look at your extended forecast for Winden. We have some spot showers across the Winden region right now. We're looking for some more showers later tonight. If we zoom in on this convergence zone over the Black Forest and the Els Valley, you'll see some showers this evening. Not a lot of rainfall, just 7 to 8 inches in 1 hour. If you're around the nuclear power plant and a little bit up more towards downtown Winden, I want to zoom in on that region with my Doppler family radar. Let's look at it here. You can see right over the school for deaf children, you're seeing some sprinkles, a bit more of a downpour once you get out towards the Forest Winden Hotel. And if you are out at the old Doppler family cabin, you're just going to have a few torrential downpours. Nothing more. Taking a look at the 5-day forecast, you'll see patches of never-ending rain tomorrow through the rest of the week, with a few hints of sunshine, child abductions, and some light time wormholes. Bring an umbrella. Jonas gets punched by his friend, gets told to go away, gets mocked for his time dealing with his father's suicide. He goes to see his grandmother and asks her if she knew the truth, and he starts kind of just venting to her. Listen, my mom's sleeping with my grandmother.
Oh, that was great. That was actually probably my favorite scene of these 2 episodes. Just the way Bubba and I have been struggling to connect the dots and all of the actions between these players. And Jonas summarizes it with 3 or 4 lines, connecting all the dots. And then when the letter is brought out again.
Oh, the letter that he burnt, and she gives it to him.
How is that possible? It was very, very cool.
It was cool, but this seemingly pushes Jonas over the edge. He decides he's got to travel back to 1986 and rescue Mikkel. He has a brief goodbye with the best character of them all, Hannah. And then he goes to 1986. And I have to say that what happened in this next scene was one of my favorite parts of this rewatch. And that was, you had already heard that Noah told Helge, this is the person we got to kidnap. Jonas walks into the hospital room to see Mikkel, and who's there but Noah the priest, who puts up his little finger in front of his mouth. Shh. And Tiny, you just looked you looked so scared.
I did not see it coming, and it's so embarrassing because I should have totally seen it coming, because future Helge had told him, don't do it, don't follow through, and so I should have been expecting it. But, any dark figure behind a door when you walk in is very scary always, so.
Oh, so terrible. They bring Jonas to the bunker in 1986. You know it's the bunker in 1986 because that's the time period it has that bright blue childish wallpaper on it. When Jonas is locked in there, he hears someone outside. Who is the person outside? It's the stranger. And the stranger tells him, yeah, you want to know who I am? I'm you. In hindsight, this makes why the stranger was so furious with Jonas trying to take Mikkel in the first place, saying, listen, you won't be born.
But remember, Bubba, the stranger is the one who gave him the tools to get to 1986. So,
Exactly
does the stranger really have a plan?
He seemingly does, and I think it's time we start calling the stranger Future Jonas. So, Future Jonas leaves present Jonas, for lack of a better term, even though present Jonas is in the past. Younger Jonas.
Let's just call him the stranger. Let's stick with the stranger.
The stranger says...
Our listeners will understand we're talking about future Jonas, but we're going to stick with the stranger, his 2019 persona.
Perfect. So, the stranger tells Jonas, I am going to use this machine, which I've been working on with the clockmaker, and I'm going to end all this craziness forever. But you've got to stay in this cell. Why does he say that? Does he think what he's going to do at the end of the episode is going to kind of set everything straight? Does he know that, okay, this is me trapped in this cell, but to get to where I need to go, it happened to me in the past, so I remember it, so I can stay in the cell, it's okay? We have no idea. But when the stranger goes into the tunnel, we assume he's in 1986, and he turns on the device, and he uses Ulrich's phone to make sure it works. He opens several rips in time. One of the rips in times allows Jonas, who's in the bunker in 1986, to see younger, nearly killed Helge in the bunker after he's been left there by Ulrich in 1953. They see each other. They reach out to touch each other across time. They're in the same room, but they're touching each other across time, and it seems to send ripple effects through everything. Helge is thrown forward 33 years, and now tiny young Helge is in 1986. Jonas is thrown 66 years into the future, we assume 2052, where it looks like a nuclear apocalypse has come to Winden. Oggity. That is Jonas's fate. Should we trust Noah and say that the stranger is the one who caused the time rip who caused this kind of time rip, this black hole, this worm happening?
I think he probably did cause it by accident, but I think he probably did cause it. But the stranger, Noah, it was probably part of his plan for him to cause it. So, he thinks he's fixing it. He makes it worse. What do we know about time travel? Absolutely nothing.
I know. It's just getting worse, and worse.
Again, the option would have been, if I were Jonas, to move to a different town. But again, wasn't in the cards for any of these characters.
Who's to say? He goes to another town, runs into some more ants.
Right, exactly. They're everywhere.
He's on Tinder. He's swiping ant. Poor Jonas. Okay, so predictions. What do you see happening with Jonas in season 2? Is Jonas going to go down a path to become the stranger? Are we going to see that? Or is he going to have more misadventures?
Well, what is the stranger's motivation to fix everything? All these kids are gone. The kids who have been taken in his age are basically dead. I don't know can't remember if he knows that. He's trying to prevent it again, I guess, from having it happen 33 years from now. That's the motivation. And of course, because he's thrown 33 years into the future, theoretically, he might also think that he can prevent this nuclear accident that's going to destroy Winden. Possibly as a thought. We shall find out ever so soon as we dive into season 2. The final character I want to kind of focus on is Claudia. Claudia has really barely appeared in this show. And when she has appeared, she's appeared in 1986 as her middle-aged self, as she's been named director of the power plant. So just going through her stuff, we see the oldest version of Claudia in 1953 enter the clockmaker's shop with blueprints for the brass time machine and asks him to build it. Claudia has let herself go. It really did take me a minute to figure out which character this was in 2019 who was the same character in 1953. Right.
Now, I want to pause for a second and say that if I had to guess, how did Claudia get the blueprints for this time machine? Probably because she had the time machine and could break it down and create blueprints from it. So it's like there's no beginning or end. There's no answer to which came first, the chicken or the egg. This brass time machine has always existed in one form or another. And she's the one who is inspiring it to be built. In 1986, so this is when she's the power plant manager, she encounters her dog from when she was a child in 1953, alive and well.
Called it.
You did call it, Tiny. That was great. What does she do once she sees this dog miraculously reappear 33 years later? She starts reading the book that the clockmaker wrote, which was given to her by Helge when she came in for her first day as director of the plant. She goes to her predecessor, Bernd Doppler, and asks him, okay, what's going on with all these barrels in the cave? He admits that they were hidden because they're byproducts of a small meltdown that happened that summer. What does she do as her first plan? Does she try to clean it up? No, she seals it in the caves and hires this friend of her daughter's, Alexander, to weld the door shut. Let's jump forward to 2019, and now we're going to go chronologically in 2019, if such a thing is possible. On the night when Mikkel disappeared, the rip in time caused Mads Nielsen, Ulrich's younger brother, who was taken in 86, to suddenly appear in the bunker in 2019. Peter found the body. Peter looks on the body. He sees that it's Mads, and so he calls Mads' father Trante. Trante comes to the bunker. They're both like, how is this possible? Who shows up to explain how it's possible? 2019 let herself go version of Claudia. She tells them, okay, we got to move this corpse to where it's going to be found. Then, the next thing in 2019 we see Claudia do is she approaches her grandson Bartosz. He doesn't seem thrilled to see her. He's been told she's dead. She suddenly shows up alive and is asking for his help. Doesn't seem to get much help from him because later on in that final episode, Bartosz decides to join Noah in his limo, and Noah is claiming that Claudia, Bartosz's grandmother, is his/their main adversary.
Well, I mean, think about this. Bartosz tells Noah, everything you told me that was going to happen has happened. So I think we have to assume Noah has already been forward in time to 2053 to know that this was all going to happen. So it makes me ask, is there even a point to anything that we're going through if it's already written?
I love that you use the phrase already written, because another thing that we have to think about are these notebooks. We have seen notebooks, several characters hold them, and these notebooks theoretically describe every passage through time and where everybody's going. And that's how somebody like Bartosz can say, everything you told me came true, Noah, because Noah has this book that knows everything that's going to happen. What's interesting is in 2019, in the bunker, when Peter and Trante find Mads' body, Claudia shows up. Claudia shows them a notebook because Peter tells Trante, everything Claudia told us in this book came true. And then I forget which one Peter or Trante says, yeah, but there have been some pages torn out. Oh, so fascinating. So fascinating. Any guess, and I'll admit I don't have a great one, of how refined businesswoman of 1986, Claudia, ends up 33 years later looking like she's a badass guerrilla fighter in the wars of 2052.
Well, I mean, maybe I'm being sexist here. I didn't comment on future Jonas's look, aka
he looks
the
rough.
stranger.
He looks rough too.
So maybe this is just the way you look when you've been in Winden and traveling time several times. It just takes a toll.
Claudia is according to Noah, his main enemy. In the battle that's possible to happen in season 2, whose side are you on?
Oh, I'm Team Claudia. I mean, I'm definitely Team Claudia. Noah is just too smug for me.
All right, let's just do some rapid fire predictions. Any guesses of what in the world is going to happen to Ulrich trapped in 1953 in prison.
That's really tough. Really tough. Poor Katharina, right? I mean, she's lost her son. Now she's lost her husband. It's not good.
No, it's not good at all. But Ulrich has Helge's blood on him. Even if they can't connect him to the two bodies they found out by where the power plant is going to be built, they've got enough circumstantial evidence on him to beat him in his cell.
Yeah, but they're not going to do lab tests in 1953.
True, but so he'll just be charged with the murders based on what evidence?
Yeah. Now, talking about good characters, I'm going to go back to what we said before. Now, who is the police officer? We always forget his name, but he's actually pretty good.
Shoot, what is his name? How do we always forget his name? I love him so much.
What did he ask? He asked...
His name is Doppler for sure.
Egon.
Ghostbuster, Egon.
He asks Jonas, if the kids are into devil worshipping, right? So
because he heard teenage Ulrich's record.
It's pretty endearing.
What do you think? I've already kind of mentioned it on one spoiler section. What do you think about, once again, there is no what came first, the chicken or the egg, they both happen. What I believe we're supposed to take into this is that when Egon was a young officer, this old man came in who was completely crazy, talking trash about him, predicting he was going to become drunk when his wife left him. 33 years later, he meets this teenage kid who for some reason really reminds him of that person, and so he kind of dislikes him.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's take it from Ulrich's point of view. It's 1986, his brother is missing. This cop who should be giving him support keeps throwing suspicion on him, arrests him, for attempted rape that he didn't do. He's thrown back in time. He sees this cop again. Admittedly, it's a 33-year younger version of this, or 66-year younger version of the cop. He hates the cop, and so he starts causing the rift by yelling at him.
So if Ulrich is trapped in 1953, does Magnus, Martha, and Mikkel ever become born?
Well, he gave birth to them in 2019, or sometime between 86 and 2019, and so he can't destroy that. But yeah, this poor Ulrich is in rough shape. I've heard people who've seen, TV critics have been able to see the first 4 episodes of Dark Season 2, and they tell me that Ulrich has a slightly reduced role, at least in the first 4 episodes of Season 2.
Oh, poor Hannah.
Let's talk about all of the characters who possibly could know anything about time travel. So I'm going to bring up the characters real quick, and let's just look at them as best we can. So we know Noah knows about time travel. I believe we know Agnes from 1953. There's something about her I think she knows about time travel too. The clockmaker, he knew about time travel. Theoretically, Claudia Tiedemann knows about time travel. Helge Doppler knows about time travel. Through the first season, Trante Nielsen knows about time travel. Inez Kahnwald knows about time travel. Now let's go down to the more recent meaning 2019 characters. Obviously, we know Yasin, the deaf child who was taken and killed, knew about time travel. Jonas knows about time travel. Jonas's father, Michael Mikkel, knew about time travel. Ulrich knows about time travel. His brother Mads might have learned about time travel. Charlotte, the female cop, she knows about time travel. I really, really do suspect that both Alexander and Bartosz know about time travel. Regina has walked into the hotel room and seen this stranger's insane notes. That's an awful lot of... Hell, Peter Doppler, Charlotte's husband, probably knows something about time travel because he found Mads' body once it popped in. Almost everybody knows something.
Well, I mean, it's 2019 where these people are that you're talking about. A trip to Ancestry.com might do them some good.
Or it could end up in more Jonas and Martha-like situations. Maybe they want to stay away from it. On our spoiler section, after episodes 6, 7, and 8, we were talking about who could be Noah. I'm going to bring up yet one more crazy thing to think about, Tiny, and that is, who is Benny? People are like, well, who in the world is Benny? Benny is the trans sex worker who has a little trailer who Peter has apparently visited in the past but did not visit on the night Mikkel went away. Is there any chance that Bene, the sex worker, who did have a bit of a stare down with a hooded person in the rain in 2019, is there any chance Bene is a 33-year flash-forward version of Bartosz and or Magnus?
Well, I mean, right now they are all in 2019. So
Correct.
I really am not sure that we can make that leap that, I mean, honestly, who knows at this point? But if I'm looking at this picture, to me, he looks more like Magnus than he does Bartosz.
Okay, listeners, you heard it called here first. If Betty is any character we know ahead of time, we are going to go with Magnus on this guest for the future. Tiny, any final thoughts, any words you want to tell our listeners as we head into season 2?
I mean, you are much better at podcasting, Bubba. You have done this before. You can probably extrapolate a lot of things better than I can. I really think that this handy chart that you have up will be helpful watching season 2 and moving forward. And I'm wondering how many different more rows we're going to have when we start talking about 2052, and start talking about 2052.
I just want to say, listeners, I hope you've enjoyed Dark Season 1. Once again, write to us on our Twitter and Instagram handle at DoublePHQ, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. We want to know how frustrated you are that I've said Helge, that I've said Tiedemann, that I've said Bartosz, all these things. Correct us on our pronunciation, and I'm going to give you one bit of homework. One of the things I was doing to prepare for this podcast is I was just Googling Dark Cast. And call me crazy, this show is so effective. I would see these pictures of the cast on the red carpet at various events. And I'd see all the teenage characters together. And I'd look at this picture and I'd go, this isn't right. And what I realized, what I was so obsessed with this isn't right, it was because the teenage actors who portray Ulrich and Katharina were with the 2019 kids of Martha and Bartosz and Magnus. And I was like, God, why is this so weird to me? And then I suddenly realized, oh yeah, my mind doesn't think these characters exist at the same time. So that's how effective the show has been. You can go to our website, doublepmedia.com, to find out about all the great things we podcast about. We've done a bunch of great TV shows: Game of Thrones, Twin Peaks, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, Ash vs. the Evil Dead, and many, many more. Once again, follow us at DoublePHQ on Twitter and Instagram. Like the page, Facebook.com/DoublePHQ. And we'll see you on the other side of the Winden Caves.